So testing out there, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1. All right, so can people hear me out there? First, I need to know that the audio is okay. How does it sound out there? I need some. Actually, I should go to the comments so I can see myself here. Yep. I guess it could be heard. Yep. I guess it could be heard. We got 7. Hello out there. All right, just a moment. Do me a favor, share it around a little more. I mean, I did it on Twitter and whatever.
Sure. You have a link on CMTV right now, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I would like to know that people can hear me. I believe you can. Looks like we have 7 people. I think I'm going to just, actually really hot. I'm going to take this other shirt off. I'm going to step out of camera just for a moment. We're just going to talk until we get 10 people, and then we'll get started. I'm hot. Okay, I got to take this heavy shirt off. Just a moment. Okay. Hello, Susan. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so how are people doing? I'm here with, it's okay to show you every now and then? All right, so I'm here with Ben, CMTV Ben. Ben has edited, how many articles do you think you've edited?
I don't know, like
roughly
20 definitely.
Oh, I think way more than 20.
Could be 40, but
I think
maybe not more than that.
I'm guessing make 40. So he's edited like 40 of my articles, and he's a bastard, but in all the right ways. So that's all good. So we've been together for going up, what, year and a half now?
Since January 2017.
Is that it?
Yeah, inauguration.
Okay. So who's out there? Mike, hello. Sound is a bit low. All right, so there's not really much I can do about the sound. I can get this closer to my mouth. That's one thing I can do. Let's see. I can. Oh, yeah. So
I was just talking very, very quietly, and that may be why they perceive it to be quiet.
All right, so I need to know how you can hear me. That's most important, because we only have this one mic. So I'm going to pass this if I ask him a question, and we'll try and figure out multiple stuff, multiple microphones at the same time as we get, more established and figure out things. So this is my first live stream on YouTube. I've only done live streams on Facebook. So I appreciate your patience. So we have 8 people. Let's just talk until we get to 10. I actually got this idea, a significant part of this idea, from Ron Placone. Number one, just the show in general, of basically doing a show with the viewers. So Ron Placone has a show called Get Your News On with Ron every day at 1 o'clock in California time. 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which is 10 o'clock his time in California. And he has his viewers submit articles, and I like that idea. I don't think I want to do exactly like that. I would love to be able to have people submit articles like up until the Wednesday before, so I can take time to, think about it before Sunday. I don't want to read it when it's submitted on live, but to have a little bit of leeway. So like submitting up till Wednesday or so. And, if it's any later than that, we can consider it for the week after that. I just really like that idea. So the idea for this is that we learn together. I want to learn modern monetary theory together with the viewers. So let's see. So Susan says that they can hear me. Mike, listening via Windows PC. Okay, and Derek, thank you for being here, Derek. He says he can hear me as well. All right, so we're only having this one microphone. So when I ask Ben a question, I got to go like this. What kind of articles? This show is 100% modern monetary. This is not a progressive show. This is not anything else. I want this show to be unique in that it is only for learning modern monetary theory. So I clearly am pretty solid on the basics. I'm pretty sure that you would consider yourself solid on the basics. He's saying yes. So I can share what I know, but it's limited. And I'm hoping that very soon that we're going to just start learning together, that I'm not going, I'm going to run out of things to say. But the purpose is articles that have only to do with modern monetary theory. So for example, I have an article that we were discussing on MMT for real progressive, modern monetary theory for real progressives on Facebook, which is pretty much the primary place on the internet where I learn about MMT or ask questions about MMT. And one of the articles posted there a few days ago, was a really terrible article about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and how she represents a mass misunderstanding of the economy. So that the author is a free market person. She believes strongly in free markets. So that basically, if the government giving the people anything, spending money, is against free markets, and their free markets are best. The government is terrible. Government is only, makes free market worse, which therefore hurts the people. So I did research on it, and I'm putting that together now, and I'm going to talk about that next week.
You may want to read Mike Hall's comment.
Okay. What upload video quality compression are you using? Even at low res here, I'm getting audio break. Suggest your audio can't handle the quality you're putting out. You choose anything, so I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. Just keep we'll Wi-Fi to cell service. I mean, I'm using Wi-Fi, so if there's a problem with my Wi-Fi, then I could potentially. You know what? I should shut this. I'm pausing. I'm watching the live stream so I can see the comments come in. I just paused it to free up some of my service. I see the
okay.
Well, I see them popping up on screen, so I can. Okay. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how YouTube works. So I'm paused. You're not paused. Three of us are playing the two of us are playing the live stream as I'm recording it. So that may be challenging my Wi-Fi. I just press pause, but I don't know if that means that now I can't see the comments come in live. So we'll see what happens. He's currently playing it. I stopped it. So if he sees the comments come in and I don't, then that means that, oh, I see the comments come in. Please press pause, because I see the comments come in even though I'm paused. Okay, so, yep. Oh, you did. Okay, so now we just both stopped it. So hopefully the Wi-Fi will free up a little bit. You'll let me know. I'm only using YouTube.
No,
like my software.
We're using an auto quality, and it decided to use 480p. It doesn't have any information about compression. So we're in 480p here. YouTube chose that for some reason. It has an auto quality setting. If we drop to 360,
whatever.
Let's try it.
Okay, so you can change to go back up.
I think so.
All right. So
unless I'm viewing it.
All right, so do it.
This may be a viewing.
All right, so he says that there's a way to lower it. We'll try and lower it, and if we can raise it later, then good. All right.
Okay, Mike says not worth it. Let's keep going.
Okay. All right, so we're at 7. I guess I'll just get started. All right, so we're going to do the best we can. My Wi-Fi is on the other side of the house, so maybe that's an issue. We both stop playing a live stream. We'll see what happens. So anyway, down a setting from 480, manual setting. So he's saying set it down to, Mike is saying.
Okay.
So Cortez, and I did some research on the author. And the author turns out to be a biblical economist. Not exaggerating. She's a biblical economist. So I did some research on her, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, I can't really say that it's wrong. It's a belief. It's a different belief, which I strongly don't believe in. As far as economics is concerned. So I am creating a presentation, basically a story. Like I wanted to do a story like Jimmy Dore does, where you'll see stuff on screen, and I talk about this article, and then I go into the author and what she believes in, and so on. So that's going to be a significant story after I get my computer. Right now, we're only using my phone. I'm going to get my computer phones, and we'll figure that out. So as far as the articles, Susan, you asked about articles that help us learn MMT and articles that trash MMT. So we can learn from the experts and learn how to properly debunk articles that try and trash it. And I think both of those are going to be very valuable. A lot of it is forgetting the content, trashing the author. I mean, I don't want to trash her. I just totally don't agree with mixing religion and economics. But this article pretends that it's not religion, and that's everything she's about.
Jeff, economist is that? What's her name?
What's her name? Her name is, well, you know what? I'm just going to put in the link to the article. That's what I'll do. I have that if you'll give me a moment. It's a pretty amazing article. It's, well, I mean, it's pretty amazing when you figure out who she is and what other things that she's written and what she believes in. I watched a video of hers, a 40-minute lecture of hers, and I found a couple of segments that are really amazing. So let me give you the article. Here we go. There you go. So that's the article that I've already started creating a story about. And from my point of view, I'm just creating a presentation that I'm going to be showing on screen. And from the viewer's point of view, it's going to feel basically like a Jimmy Dore story, where it shows different segments, talks about it, show how, everything about it. So I'm really excited about that, but that requires my computer. So let me get my notes. I'm moving this box. This is crazy. See if this works. Okay, so I'm a student. I am not an economist. I'm not an expert. So yes, I know the basics pretty well, but we're learning together, and that's the point of this show. So I want to, next week, what I think I'm going to do, I think the first show is going to be showing my lesson from the conference, from the economic conference in New York, and we're going to stop it at the end of every chapter, and then answer questions and discuss it. And then I'm sure will take 2 hours. So that's my plan for next week, assuming technology cooperates and I can move it up to here. And then I have really a lot of ideas. So I wanted to do somewhat of a book club. So there is an article, or not an article, a paper by Pavlina Cherneva on the federal job guarantee. I think I don't even know the title. It's a proposal. It's her sort of white paper proposal on the federal job guarantee that was written in April of this year. And at the end of it is her huge FAQ, which is great. So what I would like to do is to do a book club on the first 20 pages, which is the first 5 sections. So to that we would read and write notes, and then together, hoping that viewers would also read it along with me, that we would discuss the first 20 pages in the first 5 chapters, and then get into further discussion about the federal job guarantee. I need to understand it better. I just had a very big discussion where I realized that I don't quite understand the macroeconomics of it as solidly as I should. And that resulted in some misunderstandings in relation to Christian Riley and Patricia Pino had their podcast with Bill Mitchell. And I had my question for Bill Mitchell, which was amazingly answered, which is really exciting. It was the first one in the podcast, their most recent podcast. But my assumptions were that federal job guarantee is progressive. And that was my question to Bill, is that I want to be able to pitch to a lot of people, to everyone. And if it is inextricably linked to the federal job guarantee was in my mind progressive, and that therefore it's a Trojan horse for progressive. So teaching someone MMT, that would turn them off because there's something inherently progressive about it. And Bill Mitchell, very roughly speaking, said that the federal job guarantee is critical to MMT, that it is indeed part of MMT, but it is my responsibility to frame it properly to different audiences. So, for example, federal job guarantee to progressives, yes, it will influence businesses to do better, so people can stand up to their bosses and not be afraid of leaving a job because they can get another job and not have to worry about healthcare, and they can run for office, and that's progressive. But for conservatives, it is simply everyone is unemployed. All these people are unemployed, and they shouldn't be unemployed. And the federal job guarantee doesn't touch the private industry directly. It simply employs the people that are already involuntarily unemployed. And if they want a job, they can have it. So to focus more on the macroeconomic side, I mean, it's very rough. So I need to understand the federal job guarantee. Actually, Christian in his the the MMT activist manifesto says that understanding the federal job guarantee is critical to being an activist. So he has a manifesto of how to be an MMT activist, of how to properly teach it, which we should definitely talk about. So some other ideas. Let me see other comments coming in. Yes, and Rathbone Bradley. So some other ideas is there is a podcast by The Weeds by Vox, which is Matt Iglesias and 2 other people. And there's this whole podcast episode where they completely trash the federal job guarantee. And it is upsetting. It's pretty upsetting because I think it is not the most good faith, like they don't truly understand it. And they're bashing it without truly understanding it and making these very, I just don't think the greatest good faith arguments about it. And so I talked about this a long time ago, but what I think might be an interesting idea would be to play this podcast the whole way through and MST3K it. Mystery Science Theater 3000, where they watched a movie and the point is not to bash it or to make fun of it, but to listen to it and to stop it at important points and to why they're not the greatest arguments. I think that would be really valuable. So that's how neoliberals, that's how centrist Democrats bash the federal job guarantee, and to be able to debunk that as well, I think listening to that whole thing would be a really interesting thing to do. Let's see, some other things. So discuss specific issues. There was I did a tweet about the federal job guarantee, and then someone responded that, well, what about business owners that can't even afford to pay themselves a living wage?
I remember this guy. It's a hilarious. He's trolling you. There's no way that's a real criticism.
So he's genuine. He is a genuine MMT, wants to learn MMT. So he does genuinely want to learn MMT, but clearly he has some perspective about business. So, but what do you remember?
Well, his whole point was, what if the business makes so little money that even the owner makes less than minimum wage? Well, how could he pay his workers, but that conflates the owner's money with the business's money. He can make no money, and his business still pays them. Also, Jeff Bezos, like on paper, or rather, I guess you're looking at Amazon not making money, but it's easy to manipulate numbers to declare the amount of profit you want.
So he's saying the federal job guarantee. This person was saying the federal job guarantee. Well, what about poor business owners, basically? And then I didn't know how to answer it. Something felt off about the question. I said, I don't even remember what I said, but I posted it in the MMT for Real Progressives group, and it created this enormous discussion. And it turned out to be really fascinating. And it was basically like, number one, without a federal job guarantee, everyone is making, not everyone, but a lot of people are making starvation wages. So if everyone made a minimum wage, a living wage, then all your customers would make a living wage. So the federal job guarantee doesn't just mitigate recessions, it also mitigates the risks of business because all customers will have more. And after we were discussing the scenario of our current economy where we don't have a federal job guarantee, when business owners were coming in, I would say, well, what would be different if everybody had a $15 minimum wage, a living wage? And they were all saying that would be a better situation. So someone brought up, I don't know.
Who was saying that?
A couple of people, not just one person.
Who were these people, though?
Oh, the Facebook monetary theory for Real Progressives group.
Business owners, or they were just atheists?
At least one, maybe at least two are business owners.
If you recall, Mark Georgia, a business owner that we know through our revolution, he also stated that the $15 minimum wage would be good for him.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, he's a good person to talk to then. We worked with him on the Bernie campaign, 2016. So it brought up a really interesting discussion, and that's another thing, a topic that I would like to talk about. And I just have a couple more ideas. So like if a video of like, Graham Elwood or whatever, who is obviously really starting to learn MMT, and I feel like he's starting to not just understand the concepts, but starting to internalize it after his talk with Fidel Kaboub a couple weeks ago, which is a really amazing talk. So like, or how you're going to pay for it for a good 10 minutes or something to play that video and then discuss why there's, what's wrong with it too. So I think there's so many different things that could be done. And that is before I even ask you guys, what do you want to talk about? What do you think would be a good use of this time? I mean, yes, submitting articles would be wonderful that I could address what you want to address. That would be great. Are there other ideas aside from just submitting articles that you have? And of course, interviews. I mean, Jeff lives an hour and 20 minutes away, and we have a central location, and actually Mark, Georgia. Mark and Rachel own a business where the Bernie campaign was, where we worked on the Bernie campaign in 2016. And Jeff Ginter, who were both former Real Progressives members. I would love to have Jeff on this show. He is doing his own local MMT talks in his county of Ocean County, is to the east against the coast of New Jersey. Then Burlington County is the west of that, and then there's Camden County, between Camden and Burlington, in Burlington. So we're an hour and 20 away. Some of his events, and then you guys can ask questions, and then Jeff can answer those questions either during or after the events. And of course, I want him as a guest. And I have another idea where is saying, well, at the beginning of the country, rich people had to lend the country money. And how is that possible if MMT is right? Well, the answer is because that was before that, when we were not fiat, number one. And it was also before the dollar even existed. So some rich person lent the government, I think during the Revolutionary War or whatever, and they would have gone broke if he didn't lend this. But that was before the dollar was created. The dollar was, I just learned the dollar. And then there was a couple other times in like the end of 1835 or something. And that was during the gold standard. And they didn't even, before it was officially the gold standard, it was effectively the gold standard, like silver and gold. So really interesting stuff. I want to understand like how the economy worked then. And Nathan Tankis is a research scholar with a Modern Money Network. Yeah, Modern Money Network, who Jeff and I met at the end of the conference, or not met, but we went out and we spoke with. We went out to dinner as our final thing at the New York conference. And he, I'm pretty sure, is an expert. I'm almost positive he is an expert on early economy. So to be able to talk to him about that, to truly understand, like, how these things really work, because he comes to me and, well, rich people had, my friend comes to me and says, well, rich people had to bail out the government. Well, how do we even discuss that if we don't know how the economy worked at that time? So Nathan can give insight. It, like he, hopefully he would be willing to, um, could give incredible insight on how the economy worked, so we can understand why did they need to be bailed out if that was indeed the case. And it's money is a unit of measurement for stuff. It's not other countries. I believe it's true that other countries don't care about our money. Our other countries care about our stuff, whether it's gold or cars or whatever it is. And money is simply the unit of measurement to measure that. So I don't know. I've said a lot of stuff. Ben, do you have any input at this point? No?
No.
All right, so I'm going to look at the comments. Oh yeah, Brad. That it's amazing. Anne Rathbone Bradley is amazing. I'll have to hear. Oh, Jeff is watching. Oh no. Okay. Yes, and I just learned at least the basics of. And here's another good thing that we could talk about: is hyperinflation. Hyperinflation. Oh, we're going to turn into Venezuela or Weimar Republic of Germany or Zimbabwe or whatever. And in the video with Fidel and Graham from a couple of weeks ago, explicitly talks about why Venezuela and Zimbabwe and Weimar Republic of Germany in the 1920s have nothing to do with our current situation, because they all were external currency. They had debt to other countries. So there was nothing that they could do. There is not possible to print enough of their own currency to meet that external foreign obligation. And we have plenty of resources, our domestic obligations. So it is completely different situation. I only know it very basically, but that is another great subject. So anyway, so there's a ton of stuff to talk about. All right. So, I mean, I hear little complaints here and there. Keeps breaking up. Blech.
And I realized
Yeah.
I can adjust the streaming quality.
Right. So Ben says we can't adjust the streaming quality, but maybe I'll just try and get the whatever. I'll try and figure it out. So I'm just going to very briefly talk about. Let me see what else I got here. To just start talking about MMT, and we'll just get right into it, and we'll just see how it goes. So, okay, so I just want to just very briefly give my background, and then just get right into MMT itself. I was Sanders. I was just completely politically asleep. I just never paid attention to anything politics. I just never found it important. I was music was my thing. I'm a singer, and then I discovered, I voted Democrat because I was told to vote Democrat. Democrats were the good guys, Republicans were the bad guys. That's, so I voted Democrat. And then in August of 2015, I discovered Bernie Sanders. And very quickly, I got really sucked up into it, really taken away by it. And what he taught me was that money in politics is the root of all evil. And in very consider it one of the first times that I really grew up, that I became an adult because of what I learned from him, that it really just cuts through the bullshit, cuts through all the propaganda for the first time. And then I realized that all, CNN and our local ABC network and stuff was just absolute nonsense. Not just inaccurate, but just not important. It was just, yeah, that's fine, but there's way more important things to be discussing that we're not discussing. So I started volunteering full time I worked full time for months in Mark Georgia and Rachel Simmons' office in Pemberton, New Jersey, where Andy Kim just beat Tom MacArthur. I'm very happy that MacArthur lost. I hope Andy fulfills the goals that he says he will. Um, and then I ran with Bernie on the ballot. I ran on the county with my partner, Mike Miller. We both ran in Burlington County with Bernie, which gave him a spot on the ballot, a decent spot on the ballot. So, we were placeholders. We really did try our best. A few in New Jersey who actually tried to win, to try to get votes, and we got 12,000 votes. We lost, of course, but and most of those votes, I'm sure, because we were just on Bernie's coattails, but we really did work hard, and it was an amazing experience. Then I was a delegate for the DNC for Bernie in 2016. I should also say Mike is now on the River Committee, which is awesome. So then I was a delegate at the DNC for Bernie. I live streamed the DNC for an average of 8 hours a day, and that's how Citizens Media TV came to be, with Adrienne Ashley's help. She shared very large audiences on Facebook and on Twitter from her home in Nevada. So that's how Citizens Media TV came to be. Then I was a finalist for Brand New Congress. I was one of under 60, like 57 out of 1,500 nominees around the country, which is really exciting. Obviously, was not a Brand New Congress candidate, but I was a finalist, which was really exciting. And then you got
a point to that is that it's not that they chose somebody else. They chose not to run anybody in your district, and then to run somebody in the race between MacArthur and Kim. Or was this 2 years ago?
Well, no. I.
Oh, okay. All right.
They didn't run anyone in CD1 anyway, but regardless.
Gerrymandered you guys out.
Yeah, in 2010 they gerrymandered us out. So all of Burlington County is CD3, which is Andy Kim and MacArthur, except for my tiny little town and another tiny little town on the west edge of Burlington. We've been taken out into CD1, which is Donald Norcross. And then I started, Bernie teaches us we need these big things. This is, we don't have Medicare for all, and this is why it's horrible. And if we had it, this is why it would be great. And same with free college, and same with, just all of these things. And then, that's great. So why don't we have these things? If, he's been talking about it for 30 years, we all have been talking about these huge things for decades. So why don't we have these things? And so I kept on asking these questions. I've kept on pushing. Why don't we have them? If they're this important, if they're required for our survival, then why don't we have them? And that's what led me to modern monetary theory. And I was on the phone with Jeff Ginter, who is in CD3 and is now, or will soon be, represented by Andy Kim. And we were talking about local politics, and he said, you really got to understand how the economy works. And this was in February of this year. And I never really thought about the economy. I had no opinions about the economy. It was just something that's not for me. It's something for other people to talk about. So we spoke on the phone for about an hour, and he introduced me to modern monetary theory. And I couldn't understand it, but I understood enough to know that it was a big deal. And then he introduced me to real progressives, and we did two of them over in February and in March. They were 2 hours each, and he taught me modern monetary theory live on real progressives, and people witnessed me learning this. And it was really it was a great experience, because everybody was witnessing me and my light bulb moments, and it was just really exciting. So I started studying it myself, and then I started doing videos about it, and then I decided to create a lesson about it. So that was February, and now in June, I was talking on my podcast. I was just having like long conversations about it, and then in June I decided to try and teach it myself. And I started teaching it, and then I reached out to Graham Elwood and I said, could I teach it to you? And so at the end of June, I taught it to Graham Elwood, which was incredible. You see his light bulbs, going off throughout the whole thing. And it's a if I don't even want to watch it again. It was a great magical experience, and he was the most gracious host. But it's really primitive. It's really primitive and long-winded, and I can't even imagine watching it again. But it was reasonably accurate. It was very got a lot of views, got a lot of positive comments. And then the month after that, I went on to Ron Placone's show. I spoke with hours after I have things to say, student where I passed off to the experts because I had nothing left to teach him. And in my place, I had Stephen Hale go on, and they had a great conversation. And then the month after that, in November, Fidel went on in my place. And so now Graham and I are learning together. We're just learning together because I can't answer his questions anymore because he knows what I know pretty much. So then after Graham, I started a week, and my goal was to not just teach people MMT, but to inspire teachers. So people could witness me growing as a teacher, and uh, I got such feedback especially from the Modern Monetary Theory for Real Progressives members. They gave me a lot of feedback, and they just, it clearly has dramatically improved since that time. I also got some expert feedback from Ellis Winningham and some at the conference as well, and tons of not just intellectual feedback, but also just from people such as Aaron. So then in the end of August, I was invited because of this lesson, and I proposed it, but because of this lesson, I was invited to give it at the second annual International MMT Conference in New York at the end of September, which was a great experience. One of the most important things I've ever done. So that video is out. It's frozen. Can you press play? Make sure that it's okay for you. It's according to that, it's frozen.
Live. I did live.
So so now I have a professional presentation with slides, and it's a good 55 minutes long, and now I'm trying to give it to local places. So the South Jersey DSA seems to be interested, so I can start teaching it to local groups.
Frozen.
It's frozen. All right, let's see what the comments say. All right, so anyway, that's basically my background anyway, so I'm going to stop talking about that. And now let's get into MMT. So is it frozen for people out there? On my camera, it's frozen. Ben says it's frozen. I could quit because YouTube seems to allow you to, oh, I'm back, it looks like. Okay, let me see the comments here. All right, so Susan said maybe it's better on the phone. Gosh, lots of comments here. Yes, Rodolfo Cortez is green, and he was at the conference. He spoke on a couple panels. Okay, I want to introduce, if anybody wants to donate, please feel free. It's in the description. Ben could put out the link to do so. Unfortunately, I had never been active on YouTube before, so I only have 84 followers, and you are not allowed to do super chats until you reach 1,000, and I only have 85 or something. So that's a little depressing, but I have a link where you can do that, And then, of course, your comment could be in the description, as you see in the description, the first donations that I get for 1, 5, whatever, I will send you a free t-shirt. And at the first $50 donation, I will send you Bernie's Our Revolution book, hardcover. So we'll get in touch afterwards. So that's pretty much it about me. And we should talk about MMT. Let me see. Is it looking good on me? Okay, it looks all right. All right, so Ben, do you have any, do you want to, you have anything? No?
No.
All right. Justice Democrats just had a big conference call. Oh, yeah, Susan. So Justice Democrats, so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that she wants to primary her partners in Congress, which is brave, which is great and brave. And she was in the protest at Nancy Pelosi's office, which was also brave. All right, so MMT. I guess we should just get into MMT. And I guess if someone has a specific, article that we can talk about, I don't see any reason why we couldn't start, doing that now, because I don't have anything, was not planning on going into specific stuff until I got my computer set up so I could show stuff on screen and so on. But MMT, the quickest way of summarizing MMT to me is that Nancy Pelosi, PAYGO. PAYGO is a way to pretend that fiscal responsibility is the most important thing. That we don't want to make we don't want to hurt our economy by doing things foolishly. And so, yes, we want to give people Medicare for all, but we can't do it unless we can pay for it, which is a fundamental misunderstanding of the economy, but that's really assuming that it's a misunderstanding. And to me, it is not a misunderstanding. Cynically speaking as a cynic, the goal is not to be fiscally responsible. The goal is to not give us Medicare for all and free college and forgiven student debt and a living wage and all of these things. The goal is not to give it. The goal is to not give us these things, because if they give us these things, that means that the people gain power. And if the people gain power, that by definition means that the powerful suddenly become less powerful. So they can't give it to us, because that means that we would gain power. And what MMT does is it reveals that it is not having to do with economic reasons, and it reveals the fact that they're simply corrupt and morally bankrupt. And so that is a big reason, I believe, of why MMT is so strongly stood against, because it reveals them for who they are. And they would have to not be able to say these lies and just simply say, my donors want me to not give, because, so now we're going to have to talk to them. So if the people join together and understand how the economy works, then we can start standing up to our government, which means that they really don't want us to understand it. Finally unfrozen. Yes. I appreciate your patience. It's the first time I've been doing on YouTube in this place in my house. So yes, MMT University. On the podcast, he said, I believe it's March 2009, Bill Mitchell on the MMT podcast with Christ Riley and Patricia, Christian and Patricia. Bill said near the end of the podcast that the book is going to be ready, I believe, in March. It's pretty much finalized now. They're just doing final copy editing of, small errors and so on. And it's only going to be around $70, which is great. And he said he is also about half funded, and that he must be fully funded before he can consider starting. So there's, a good few months still remaining. I have the current version, hardback, or not paper. I have a paperback version here, which is roughly it. At the conference, the workshop that Jeff and I had, one of the authors was on the panel with us, and he said that the book was basically just a placeholder uh, because they had to get something out. I don't remember the reasoning, but they had to get something out. So that was basically a draft. And this one is going to be just a better version of it, I think, expanded and so on. And what was called macro monetary is now just going to be called macroeconomics. It's macroeconomics through an MMT lens, but it's macroeconomics. It's not, just a flavor of macroeconomics. Um, yes, I am extremely excited for that. People, nominate Jeffrey Ginter for CD3. There you go. New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District. Nominate him, please. Okay, so I'm assuming that people out there know MMT, so I need to understand, next week, assuming technology cooperates, I'm going to play my entire presentation, and we're going to stop after each chapter and talk about it. Ben, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So what is your general? I mean, you generally understand MMT. Like, what is your? I don't know specifically. Can you talk about? Tell me. How competent do you feel with MMT? Did you learn anything from? I mean, you seem to know it before I did.
Yeah, actually, it was also Jeff Ginter that initially introduced me to it. And I remember once I came to you, I said, Jeff Ginter's got this economic platform type thing that he's been talking about. You really ought to listen to it. And he said, yes, gotta eventually. And then sure enough, eventually you did. And then you came to understand it much better than I do. I understand the mechanisms of money creation, and I understand some of how that powers the economy. But like you, the macroeconomics is beyond me, and especially the banking. Quite get down is just how the banking system works. Although, as I said, as it relates to money creation, I do understand it. It's more like bonds that I don't get.
Okay, so actually, why don't you just ask me? Because I know some people here, and I might understand some of it. So what is the confusion you have? Like you asked me, but
no, it's just draw you a diagram of how money gets from the Federal Reserve to a person. Like I on one hand, I understand how the Federal Reserve distributes money to commercial banks, and obviously I get how commercial banking works. It's the mechanics of all that money moving around that I don't understand. MMT tends to be of the view that it's money being deleted one place and reappearing another place. But I've heard from people in finance that there's more complex bookkeeping to it that they accuse us of glossing over. Right, exactly. I've heard these criticisms, don't understand them.
Okay, well, my understanding is that what I thought the national debt was at first was the American people's value, all currency issuers, but the American people's value. So the bank accounts, investments. So in order to pay off the national debt, theoretically, you would have the American people's investments, bank accounts, and wallets. And I said that in my presentation on the video at the conference. And then Scott Fallweiler came to me afterwards. Scott Fallweiler being one of the primary MMT, I believe one of the original MMT economists, the core team, I believe, said to me that's wrong, that the national debt is not the entirety of the value of the American people. The entirety of the value of the American people is about $100 trillion.
And that's all of our bank deposits. Everything.
That's all of all currency users, but I'm saying American people. All of the entirety of the value of the American people is about $100 trillion. But that, and the national debt is about $15 to $20 trillion. And the difference is that $15 to $20 trillion has been created
by the federal government since the country began. The rest of it is user to user transactions. So for example, a bank loan. So a bank loan, they create the money, but immediately the money is a debt is created with the asset at the same time. So the money supply, the total, I think it's correct to say that the money supply doesn't increase because there's a debt and an asset at the same time. So when you get a bank loan, you immediately owe them 100% plus interest. And the same with stock transactions. So when I purchase stocks, both parties get value in some way.
Right.
So there's an equal, it's the debt and the assets go up at the same time. So that's all of the national debt. No. That is the value of the American people, where that value is like a negative and a positive shared, mirrored with people. The Congress created money is above that. So I picture it as a square, as a rectangle is the user to user transactions. So that's debt and assets. It's the same. And then I picture this sort of chimney above that, which is the Congress created money, which is only an asset. There is no debt. So when Congress creates money, they get to keep it. No, we have actually. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. My wife just brought in water. She's so sweet for both of us, but we have to. Thank you. So when Congress creates money, aside from the portion that they tax back, it is an interest-free loan and grant. It is an interest-free grant. It is no strings attached. It is value that you do not have to pay back. So yes, you have to do certain things with that created money because the laws that were created that triggered that money to be created, the laws that were passed had money written in it, numbers written in it. So the money for those laws, so that money being created is an instruction to the people to do whatever it takes to implement those laws, Social Security, being an FBI agent, you paying your salary, whatever it is. So the money makes it into our pockets. So aside from the portion that's taxed back, that's the national debt. And does that make sense? I wish I could draw it. I wonder if I could draw it. So
Yes.
so that little chimney sticking above, that's the national debt. Everything else is our value, but that's not high-powered money.
In other words, you have money traveling back and forth between debt and assets, and that's normal people money. That's the money that I use. But then you have injections from above that are not repaid of high-powered money,
Aside from taxes,
and
correct.
and that is what is fueling the transfer back and forth of normal money.
Somewhat, because once it enters the economy, a person having a dollar in their pocket doesn't necessarily distinguish that dollar that this came from the government or this came from a bank. So both of those feed into the user to user transactions. But the national debt gives us value, meaning value that we're not in debt for. That's it.
Right.
So Congress, the federal government, gives us value we're not in debt for. A bank gives us value that we are in debt for. So it's like, it's hard. I don't even exactly know the language exactly to say. I wonder if there's comments of people talking about it.
Not really.
No.
Although Jeff had a comment about
bank loans increase. Jeff Ginter says bank loans increase the money supply, but it's temporary because it must be repaid over time. Yes. Yes, the word debt is a bit of a misnomer because debt implies that it has to be paid back. So yes, the national debt is our national value, but really the debt is all of that, the user to user transactions, because that truly is a debt. So if I own something, I don't understand how to really talk about it with a stock. Like I'm getting something, I give money and I get stock in the company, but I don't really understand how to really talk about it when it comes like comparing that to a bank loan. A bank loan is really clear. A bank loan is you get $100 a loan and I owe $100 plus interest.
When you buy a stock, you're getting a security that you can retrade, and the value varies. So it's similar to a loan where there's an entity that you own now. It's yours, and you could get rid of it.
Okay, but I don't understand the debt side of it. So when I get something from a bank, I immediately owe the bank $100 plus interest, $100 loan. If they believe that I'm worthy of that loan. What I don't understand is that same language with a stock. exchange. If I purchase a stock,
'Cause you don't
I'm
owe
not
anybody.
in debt
Because you don't
I'm
owe
not
anybody.
in debt
Right.
to that company.
Is the
I don't
company in
understand the
debt to
equivalent.
you because they would have to pay you back if you wanted to redeem your stock?
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, yes, I guess roughly speaking, they owe me part of their profit, a portion of their profit, or whatever it is. But
Whatever the
that I
agreement
don't
is.
understand the language between those two. But in general, we're talking about the big rectangle of user to user debt value, debt laden value, and then the chimney above, which is the value without a debt. That's like just they can do whatever they want with it. Derek. Oh, speaking of which, Susan said somewhere above, she said, if I lived in your district, I would nominate you. Susan, you don't need to be in this district. Anyone in the country can nominate you, can nominate anybody else to be a Justice Democrat. And the more nominations you get, the more they consider you. So anyone in the country can nominate anybody for Congress. So everyone out there can nominate Jeff Ginter for CD3, New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District, to run for Congress, to be a Justice Democrat, or to be a brand new Congress member. They're basically one and the same now. So nominate them. So let's see. Aaron, I think stock and flow are economic terms not referring to the stock market. Okay. I'm not quite getting how that fits in. El Randeray wrote a great article on why federal budget is not like a household budget in the Roosevelt Institute. Okay. So that's the national debt. And what else? Let's see. It's 4 o'clock. Yeah, so, I mean, I just spoke to someone last night about, do you want to talk, would you be interested in talking about MMT? And he didn't understand what it was. And then when I brought it up, he was like, yeah, I really don't think that's what it is. And I'm not in a position to be, okay, actually, that's an important point. I am not, this show is on the assumption that MMT is correct. I am not interested in defending MMT or debating that MMT is correct. So if someone comes onto the stream and says you're wrong, or bank money, why don't you consider bank money? What did you say? You said a banker, like you said before, a banker said you're missing some stuff. What happened?
Well, we've heard from different people that say, well, actually, when they collect taxes, they do something with.
But I mean the bankers. You said something like the bankers are saying that MMT misses something or something.
These are not bankers, people that are in finance. This was on Twitter. I remember one particular guy, and you had to correct a lot of your understanding of what they do with tax, as far as like recording that they took the taxes. And then the guy was, I think, claiming that they take bonds in certain amounts relative to how much tax they take, and so it actually does have effects. But again, it's hard to address criticisms when we don't have the person, and especially when it's on Twitter, we don't have a cogent version of this guy's criticism that we can address.
Okay, so yeah, it's like the FICA taxes. So FICA taxes keep track of how many FICA did, but they're not used for anything. And the same with, I don't understand this as much with taxes, but I believe that there's basically the same thing for taxes. So we collect taxes, federal taxes, and then we record how much there is, and in the budget there has to be financed. So we have to collect taxes or bonds in order to finance our spending, but that doesn't mean that it's used for spending. It just simply means that we must record. We've created some stupid rule to say that we must collect enough taxes in order to equal our spending, even though our taxes are not used for spending. So we just created, I must get 5 flowers if I can, in order to spend $5. I have to find 5 flowers or borrow 5 flowers if I'm going to spend $5 at the store. I don't use those flowers for anything, but I must get them. That's like financing it. So that's like taxes. We must collect $5 in taxes or borrow $5 in taxes, and I must officially record that, even though those taxes are not used for spending. So it's just this human-created constraint to make things more complicated and to confuse the people and to scare them into thinking that in order to have big programs, that our taxes have to go up.
and therefore they're afraid to ask for big things.
It's such a strange fear, because when does that ever happen? When the hell does it ever happen that there's a program and so they just increase your taxes to pay for it? It doesn't work. Programs in one hand and we increase our taxes in another. Sometimes they tie them together for that whole the semblance of an idea that you're paying for it. They try to associate a tax with it, but they're not related. And so it should be self-evident that you can pass lots and lots of spending without your taxes going up. People should be mad at their representatives for increasing the taxes, not for the programs.
Well, there's the laws for military, and all the things that the powerful want where don't have pay-fors in it in the bills.
Right.
So the war, increasing military spending and so on, don't have any pay-fors in it. HR 676 has a whole lot of pay-fors in it.
Right.
And then it also has, and by the way, we'll create whatever money is necessary, which is the only line that matters. Going up don't matter, but that's what scares the
Those
people.
are basically flyers.
What?
Those are basically flyers on the bill. They're tagging along on that bill. It looks like they're together. They actually have nothing to do with each other.
They're to scare the people. So everything that has, it's a poison pill. HR 676 has a poison pill, along with, I'm assuming, every other big program for people have pay for poison pills on them. They're completely not necessary, except to sabotage the bill, because people will say, oh, see, my taxes have to go up if this bill passes. Yeah, but we could completely erase that section without any consequence. So let's say we do that. So we eliminate that section. We don't have those pay-fors in there anymore, which is not necessary, because the only thing that we need is we will appropriate whatever money is necessary. That's the only line that matters in that whole section. And then people will come, well, how are you going to pay for it? And they'll badger you. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? And so people are pressured into saying, oh, I'll pay for it by increasing this tax or this tax or this tax or this tax. And then they'll lessen the pressure on you, which is great. But it sets up the people to be upset about it. So if HR 676 passes, then all these pay-fors come to pass. These taxes go up just because it's the law, not because it's necessary. And a lot of people get upset. See, my taxes go up. Even though they're not used for anything, my taxes go up. And now we're going to fight against that bill and sabotage that bill. And the next president that comes in from the opposite party will water down or kill that bill. That's the point.
Right.
That's the point.
Susan is pointing out the very obvious example of how they tied payroll taxes to Social Security, even though at the time they were moving away from the gold standard. And as she's saying, it was just to make people think that they were paying for it. They'd be more invested. They wouldn't want to cut that program later. And that's why Social Security has survived despite the walking back of much of the rest of the New Deal.
Yep. All right, let's see. Do FICA taxes help control inflation? Jeff, what is your state? New Jersey's 3rd congressional district, Susan. Jeff is in New Jersey's 3rd congressional district. Thank you, Jeff. He left. Thank you for that. Payroll taxes were added by FDR. Yeah, you know what? There is. Could you do me a favor?
Mm-hmm.
Could you search for FDR Social Security quote? You know what? Oh, it's on my phone. I might be able to find it. There is a quote from FDR. It is on the Social Security website, SS whatever it is, .gov.
This law represents a cornerstone in a structure.
No. Quote, FDR quote, Social Security politics or political or something. There's a quote by FDR. It's on the Social Security website. And he talks about how it is not political. It is only political. It is not for financing Social Security.
Let's see. Yeah, I have it here.
Correct. Aaron Taylor, FICA taxes are a double-edged sword. It definitely makes people fight for it, but for all the wrong reasons. And it also gives politicians a chance to say that we're broke, can't pay for it. Yeah. Federal spending is done exclusively with
created currency, all FBI employee salaries, every Social Security benefit, every Medicare benefit, every Medicaid benefit, every time it's paid, the currency is created. And therefore, there is no money to be stolen or to be borrowed or to go broke. So to say Social Security will go broke makes no economic sense, because Social Security is exclusively paid with created currency every single time.
I get a quote.
Okay.
FDR said.
Can do me a favor when you're done, put it into the comment, the link into
Yes. FDR said, quote, "I guess you're right on the economics." When asked if it was a mistake to levy these Social Security taxes, he says, "I guess you're right on the economics. They are politics all the way through. We put those payroll contributions there so as to give the contributors a legal, moral, and political right to collect their pensions and their unemployment benefits. With those taxes in there, no damn politician can ever scrap my Social Security program. Those taxes aren't a matter of economics. They're straight politics."
Yeah, read that last sentence again.
Those taxes aren't a matter of economics. They're straight politics.
And that's on the Social Security website, right?
Yes.
Pretty sure.
It is ssa.gov.
Yep. All right. So do me a favor and put that link in there, maybe even copy the quote. And number two, could you write Jeff Ginter's district with New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District, and maybe even Justice Democrats for nominating people. Yeah, that would be a cool little purpose of this show, to actually get things done and get Jeff nominated. We're gonna put a link. Thank you, my assistant here. We're gonna put a link to nominate Jeff Ginter and to give you the information of showing you New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District with a link so you can go and nominate him. The more the better. He needs to be in Congress. He really does. And yes, he can't afford it, just like most of us can't afford it. But first, let's nominate him, and then we'll figure out, how we can, finance this. I have some ideas. Some have suggested some ideas, and this is the time to start thinking about that. But the first step is to actually get these organizations, Our Revolution and Justice Democrats, to be aware of him. And of course, the Tom MacArthur video, which if you nominate him, you should probably put the link to that video in there. And there's a link to there is an article that was written about him after that and stuff. Stephanie Kelton tweeted about him 3 times in 1 week. So these things would only help, like if you nominate him, that you should put these things in there, and this will help. This will only help him be, noticed by them. This is the time to start. Oh gosh, Susan just read my mind. She just said it. She said everything that I just said. I didn't realize. Jeff Ginter is in New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District. Let's nominate him for Congress via justicedemocrats.com. We think could include where he's challenging Representative MacArthur. NAC M-A.
Let me give it one here.
How do you spell it? M-A-C-C. M-A-C-A-R-T. Let me see. R-T-H-U-R. That's how you spell it. Oh yeah, no firm commitments. We're 2 years off, and they haven't even been put in. Haven't been. The session hasn't even started. We have a good 2 years. So this is the time to start thinking about it, because there is no way he could afford it. There is no way that he could leave his job, because his entire family would lose health care, as he discusses in that video with Tom MacArthur. And the video that went viral, is edited to around 3 minutes long, and it's extraordinary. There is a longer video that is the full video, which is about 12 minutes long. And in there, he discusses how his family, more in depth of how his family would lose health care and so on. And of course, he can't afford to leave his job. He luckily has a good job with good bosses, but he can't afford to leave his job and then run for office. And that is, in my opinion, the primary reason of why we have the laws that we do and why the situation is what it is, because that's what they need to avoid. This is about power. The only way to stay in power is for the only way for the powerful to keep themselves powerful is for them to actively keep the powerful the only way the powerful can stay powerful is to actively keep the powerless powerless. That is the point of neoliberalism. That is the point. That is the foundation, that she cares about fiscal responsibility, when the truth is that fiscal responsibility is the cover to avoid giving the people whatever they need to survive. That's the point. And again, MMT reveals the fact that it is a sham, that they could easily give us Medicare for all, and that it is not a financial constraint. There is no financial constraint whatsoever. We have the idle resources. We have the resources sitting idle and ready to go. Just Democrats will have thousands. I mean, they will. They will have thousands of nominees to sift through. Justice Democrats. That's true. Does a person have to be nominated, or can you just run? If you are going to be a Justice Democrat, you must be nominated to someone else must nominate you to Justice Democrats or brand new Congress, which are basically the same. You can't nominate yourself, and the more nominations you get, the more that they will notice you. So yes, you need to be a Justice Democrat in order to be one, in order for them to select you. Yeah, it's true. So even nominating as a group, not just as an individual, but as a group, as an organization, to say, yes, we want Jeff Ginter to run for office. This is why. So my endings to say, I would love to just keep talking, but I have a feeling that people know much of this stuff. If you have articles that you have, you can certainly put those in. We could certainly start taking a look at that. Starting next week, my idea for next week again is I will play my full lesson. I will stop at each chapter. We will ask questions and discuss it afterwards. And that will easily take up 2 hours time. And then after that, I'm going to do this article with this biblical economist who wrote the article about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which has no hint of religion in it. It just says that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and everyone that likes her is completely ignorant about the economy and history, and they just are completely ignorant of how the free market is way better than the government. And one of the amazing things that I discovered is that she wrote another article that her theory is, the article, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's something like income inequality is not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is extreme poverty. And specifically, she says, a lot of people get the benefits of. Unfortunately, some people don't get to enjoy the benefits of a high income, and it is our responsibility to try and change that. So don't worry about the rich. Let's try and make the poor people richer. Let's try and increase their income, and that is the solution to society's ills. Don't touch the rich. Don't worry about inequality. Let's just also make the poor richer. That's the solution. She also says that profits are nothing, because profits should be considered as leftovers. Meaning, so it's a leftover. So profits are a good thing. So I'm just going to come over here and take them because nobody. Actually, she uses the word leftovers. Profits are leftovers. And it's just, to me, it's just a way.
Profits are leftovers that your workers left on the factory floor. What does that mean? Like, you have to pay them more than they. It's ridiculous. They made that. They definitely made that. Otherwise, your machine wouldn't have run. Your business wouldn't have opened up that day. Your food wouldn't have gotten made. You wouldn't have sold anything. The profit's not something that the worker decided to leave on the ground. It's something you decided not to pay.
Yeah, and there's some other here's another one. Aaron, yesterday a politician from Arkansas said that poverty is a personal choice in America. That if the poor chose to work hard, then they could also be millionaires. And he actually used that word. If the poor worked hard, then they could also be millionaires. So it is therefore their fault for not choosing to work harder. And he ended up deleting the post, and it got incredibly ratioed. It got which means on Twitter that it got way more comments, likes.
When it just creates it was a crap show.
If you know what tweet I'm talking about?
I have a Arkansas GOP rep.
It's a representative, and he ended up making his account. No one knew could come. He deleted. So Ben's gonna give out the link. Ben is typing like this because he has a broken arm, or a broken finger, I guess. So it's the only way for him to type. Poverty is a personal choice. So that refers to the tweet.
Yes, it's an article about his tweet.
I've only seen the tweet itself.
Aaron made an interesting comment about this guy being Christian, which
the representative.
Yes. I mean, you could take that all kinds of ways about the way that Christian organizations work in politics, but I think the more interesting way to look at that is, what do they call it? In evangelical Christianity, they believe that if you're rich, it's because God blessed you with that and you deserve it. Prosperity theology, I think is what it's called. And so you have those mega preachers who basically use their own wealth as justification for their preaching so that people will give them more money to make them more preachy and so on. It's not just a crackpot idea. Normal people that are Christians are taught this, that if you succeeded, it's because you were blessed. And so on the one hand, you have people using this for pretty, and then you have people that believe it as a legitimate cultural belief that they've been raised with.
And I have a feeling that the people who believe it just as a cultural belief are the ones. Let's just turn it off. Wi-Fi. I think it is working now. I turned off my Wi-Fi. We're going to try cell service for the rest of this video, and maybe this, you'll tell me if this goes better. So she says a couple of things. Number one, she shows a picture of someone in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and she shows this woman, and this is all part of this story that I'm going to be doing in at least a couple weeks. So she shows this woman carrying water, on her shoulders, and she talks about how in order to get water, she has to walk 4 miles. She has to just scoop dirty water into her buckets, walk 4 miles back to her house, very roughly clean it, boil it, whatever, and then she has water. And she says it's thousands of calories just to get water. And then she compares it to her, where she just drives an air-conditioned car to the grocery store, pays $2 or a few dollars for more water than she needs in that day, and drives back to her home in a air-conditioned car, and it takes hardly any energy and hardly any money. And so we're privileged. And so a couple of things. Number one, she says we're blessed, and we're what is it? First of all, she says that it hardly takes any energy, but we're using a heck of a lot of dinosaurs' calories to get to that store. Number one, how much energy was taken to produce and bottle and ship that water. Number two, what were the consequences of getting that water? Who is being hurt by taking that water? Number three. And also she said that the only reason that she doesn't have what we have, that this person in the Democratic Republic of Congo does not have what we have, is because the government does not have economic freedom. I mean, does that sound as insane to you as it does to me? So the government doesn't in the Democratic Republic of Congo does not have economic freedom, and we have economic freedom here. And if they only had the same kind of government of economic freedom like we do, then she would be driving to a store in the Democratic Republic of Congo in an air-conditioned car and paying just a few bucks for more bottled water than she could use in a day, having nothing to do with the fact of the technology and the resources at our disposal in the United States, as opposed to the Democratic Republic of Congo.
And I mean, is it lost on her that it's obscene that somebody that already has money has a more efficient way to get the things they need than a person that doesn't have money? Like, it'd be one thing if this lady in Congo has $1 million and she's still got to spend 1,000 calories to get water. That wouldn't be worth it. She would be hurting herself by doing that every day, but at least she'd be able to afford it. Whereas this economist lady, she has both the benefits.
Biblical economist lady.
She has the benefit of having the money to pay for the things she wants and to be able to go there efficiently, get it efficiently, and to save her money. She can get more than she needs at a bulk price. And all of these are benefits afforded by her already having money, not by where she lives. It's by the fact that she already has money to roll together, and she's able to live in an efficient economy with a lot of money being spent.
She just won the lottery of where she's born and what family she's born into, what country she's born into, and what family she's born into.
I don't see how does freedom tie into that? What is that? I don't see how she could say that freedom has anything to do with why she's got that ability.
And then it brings up, like, so why, if that's pretty imbalanced. So between us and this woman, between this woman and the woman in the Republic of Congo, so that's pretty imbalanced. So the only way to fix that situation is to make their government more free. So I mean, clearly that doesn't consider
logic,
that doesn't consider their resources, that doesn't consider what other circumstances. But even pretending that the resources are the same, the only way to solve this problem is to make their government more economically open, economically free. Like, she couldn't just like travel to the Congo and help them get some infrastructure or create a
We haven't even suggested alternate plans. We're just saying that this must be, and it's weird. It's like pointing out one difference between the U.S. and that country and saying that must be the most important difference. But like, one, I mean, I don't want to like talk bad about Democratic Republic of the Congo because I don't know much specifically about their economy, but I believe they're a banana republic. They rely on a single resource. You can't compare that to us, where we have many different resources. And part of the reason that banana republics only have one resource is not that they don't have them available. They don't develop those resources. They are being paid externally by other countries to, for example, make bananas for them. So they can't drill the oil on their island, or they can't cut wood because they're being paid to do the bananas. It's exploitation. She's ignoring the fact that lady in the Congo is poor.
Being exploited. Fidel Kaboob's in the Graham Elwood video from a couple of weeks ago that I set up very. I did, and I'm really proud of that. It's an amazing video. He talks about how even if you have like a single resource in a country, and so the only way we can survive is to sell this single resource to. So if they sell bananas, for instance, that's great that they sell bananas, but the most money is being made by the branding and the repackaging. Now, bananas is not a great example, but like
Chiquita makes a lot of money by being Chiquita, for sure. So
okay,
and Dole.
Well, there's better examples, but that is an example. But there's better like packaging of processing of gas or whatever it is. So they sell the oil. He said that actually Saudi Arabia and oil producing countries import fuel because crude oil is not directly usable.
It's not worth it for them to make their own.
Right. So it's the processing, it's the branding that makes the most money. and more powerful countries use that as leverage to screw these less developed countries to get them stuck in this position of never being able to reach. I don't know. No, I'm getting quickly out of my depth here, but of being stuck in that position of only having a very crude resource and never being able to benefit from those higher level things.
It should be obvious when you look at Africa as an example, because each African country has an enormous wealth of different resources, much greater than in Europe. Maybe they don't have as much farmland that's developable, but like natural resource wise, there's so many different things that every African country could be benefiting from. But historically, if you look at diamonds or you look at ebony, all these things were taken away from them, so they couldn't benefit from it. And sure enough, now you see that those countries don't have stable industries to support it. Instead, they're shipping it all out of their country. When if we had left them alone, they would have developed an industry inside their country to sell diamonds.
And not to even mention, I don't know about this country specifically, but of like colonization, that you force them to use your currency, so you immediately just start the whole process of they can't even.
And then you put them in debt. You put them in permanent debt in a foreign currency there, which as we know, that's how you get actual hyperinflation.
I mean, even Puerto Rico, who's part of the United States, they don't even have their own government. So it's probably getting a little off topic. But so one other thing about this lady is there's another portion of her video where she says that economists measured GDP from 1 AD to the present, and obviously big estimations from much of that, but still. So in 1 AD, people were using like less than $1 a year, or $100, less than $100 a year from 1 AD all the way up until around 1800 or something like that, the Industrial Revolution. And then it turned out to be like $1,000 a year starting in 1900. And then, then it goes really much higher. And she was saying that we can keep getting wealthier. And this is God's plan. This is all God's plan. And she was saying that the fact of exploding population doesn't change any of this, that the human population, regardless of how fast it grows, can keep on getting wealthier, and we can dramatically decrease poverty, which is what she said was our biggest issue, not inequality, but increasing the wealth of the poor is our biggest challenge in human society. And that she said that poverty has dramatically decreased and is continuing to decrease, and that there are estimates of that in 20 years or something, that poverty could decrease to 3%, meaning everybody just keeps getting richer without any consequence to the planet, without any consequences to the planet, that everybody can just keep getting richer. No one has to take away stuff from anybody. Everybody can keep getting richer. We can eliminate poverty, and there's no consequence to the planet. Last year, 2017 video, she said this, as if climate change is just completely not an issue. Just completely not an issue. It's amazing to me that I don't feel like I described that very eloquently, but that population control is not an issue. We should encourage people to keep giving birth, and
Okay. Population control, from my understanding, is not a huge issue. The whole like Thanos theory that we need to start like cutting the population because there's not enough it's not true. We need to be more efficient. I know that, what's his name, Steven Pinker, is famous for his quote that capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other system. I would like to some other time to go back and scrutinize that claim with you, because I know that it's a pretty shaky claim.
Can you say it again, please?
It's claimed by, I think, Steven Pinker, who's like an economist and a very casual economist, and other like neoliberal type talking heads. It's been claimed that capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other system, which, besides being a red herring because you haven't had a chance for any other system to do that, I know that that's misleading if you look at like the quality of life and obviously income inequality. I'd like to delve into this deeper when I'm able to look up quite what's faulty about that. But it's a very common belief.
Okay. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other comments at all. There's 5 people here. I'm hoping that this is going okay as far as cell service and whatever. I am now using cell service. You're not seeing any other comments, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right, so hopefully this is going okay. I mean, as far as service, I appreciate everybody being flexible with, this is sort of more off the cuff than I'm planning on being going forward. But I am really looking forward to talking more about this. I appreciate you being flexible with, talking and doing this stuff.
I have a question. I'm worried that we will not be able to have a satisfying discussion about this question, but here's my question, which is, why does the government need to increase the money supply overall? Why can the money supply not remain fixed with everyone giving money back and forth between each other and it not expanding?
Wait, what? Not expanding?
Because so you say, where did the first dollar come from? Well, the government had to just create it. Okay, so all dollars were just created by the government. Okay, but it's not. That does not imply. That does not imply that the government needs to create money.
If it doesn't create money, it can't coerce the people into doing what's necessary with its resources.
Okay.
Money is
all right, that gets
money
to a
is
much
the
more interesting conversation we can't have, which is, why does MMT think it's okay to force people to live under a government just because we need them to work our resources for us?
I don't think it's MMT. I think that's just governments.
Well,
Period.
right, but MMT being a description of how governments use taxes and fiat currency to work economies. You know what I mean?
Well,
when you have a gold standard, it's very obvious why all this is going on. There's a limited amount of gold, and we need to. But in the fiat,
to control inflation, spending and taxing and all of these other tools control inflation.
Right, but couldn't we keep the number of dollars exactly the same?
But then how would we do new things for the government?
And I suppose we would run out of the ability to manipulate resources then?
The government uses money as a tool and instructions to tell the people how to use its resources for the benefit of society, paying soldiers, paying FBI agents, paying Social Security employees, paying politicians, getting laws implemented, paying Social Security benefits, buying military stuff.
I'm trying to articulate a right-wing criticism here, which would be, okay, I get that your description of how money was created is accurate, but why do we have to do it? And many of them would say it's wrong to do it.
It's wrong to create money for the government to create money?
Yes.
Who would say this?
Like a libertarian, for example, would tell you that it's coercion, it's violent coercion for the government to say you must pay taxes in the US dollar and therefore you must work. And so they're not going to be...
But you know what that misses though?
Yes.
Someone is going to tell them to do something. Maybe not the government, but someone is going to take over. Whether it's a mob, whether it's a local, whether it's a private company, someone. It's like the government tells us what to do is immoral. Okay, so are we talking about just, what do you call it? Anarchy? Everybody just tells themselves what to do. Like no one would come in and start bossing people around. If the government doesn't boss people around, then no one is going to tell people to what to do. If you borrow money from a bank, the law is that you must pay them back, or the contract, or it's whatever. There is a law to do something, and the government enforces that law. And in a bank loan, your contract with them is that you will pay them back, and they have some tools that they can use to coerce you to do that. Government is not the only one telling you to do things. There are other. If they don't tell you to do something, that power vacuum will be filled by someone. Someone will be telling you what to do somehow.
Right.
And I think it is accurate to say that like a local mob would take over smaller areas.
I'm articulating criticisms I disagree with, but the argument there is that you'd move to an anarcho-capitalism where even though, businesses would be the ones that make the decisions about what happens in the economy, the government would no longer do that. They argue that because somehow it's meritocratic for you to become a business owner. Like if you have enough money to run the economy under in that system, then you deserve it. So they say that's freer than what we're doing, and therefore what we're doing is invalid.
It's theoretically freer and realistically completely the opposite, because this freedom, theoretical freedom for all, means actual freedom only for the powerful, because they have the resources to come in and suck up all the resources immediately, and the small people don't. And therefore, effectively, a free market enables the powerful to jump in, like Trump just
Bears Ears National Park that he sold off. Yeah.
He sold off. Do you think that just average folks like me and you went into Bears Ears National Park and bought off stuff, or do you think that huge corporations were ready and waiting to go to scoop up almost all of it? Because I'm pretty sure there's oil underneath it to drill for oil. So truly free, theoretically, practically means theoretically free for all. Practically means freedom for the most powerful, because they have the resources to jump in and suck up everything immediately, where the little person does not.
Yeah, I think you have a good argument also that as the incredibly rich get richer, that you got to kind of redefine freedom. Like Jeff Bezos could buy a country. Like, I'm not kidding. He could buy a country if he wanted to, and still have money. He's giving away half of his money just so that it's not obscene, and he has almost twice as much money.
He's giving. Okay, well, I don't want to.
I do think he pledged to give half of his money away, same as Bill Gates. But that's a form of incredible freedom to do literally anything you want to shape the world. Like, and so then we're just here not able to affect anything. I think that we have to redefine what freedom means. It's not just about the government leaving me alone anymore. It's probably about big business leaving me alone.
Yeah, I mean, just the libertarian thing is basically the government is whatever we make it to be. The government is whatever we make it to be. And right now it's a terrible thing. But any criticism you have about the government, any criticism that you had about the federal job guarantee, I learned this at the conference, Pavlina Cheneva. Any criticism that you have about the federal job guarantee, you can say the exact same thing about private industry.
Right.
Well, they're just make work jobs. McDonald's, they're just pointless. They're just they're any criticism.
A really good example.
And the same thing with a criticism of the government. You can say exactly the same thing about private industry. Government is just oppressive. Okay, so let's get rid of the government. Now what's going to be oppressive? Because something will be oppressive.
People complain about the most common right-wing local government complaint is about potholes. Oh, you got 7 guys standing around looking into a pothole. Government's so efficient, isn't it? But then you go and you look at contract workers doing the same pothole work, and sure enough, you got 7 of them standing around. Now, they're not all holding different clipboards to do different regulations for the government. I get that. But they're running the clock because they don't give a crap, because they're on contract.
Same with corruption.
Paying them.
Same with corruption.
Right.
Corruption is going to happen in the government, and it can just as easily happen in private industry.
Right.
But if it happens in the government, that's a centralized location where the people could change it. It is possible to change it, and it is being influenced by private industry. You know what? It's corrupted because of private industry.
Yes.
Our government is corrupted because of private industry.
Right.
Our government is corrupted because of the people who want to do the corruption on their own. Our government is corrupted because they make it corrupted. They are corrupting it. And so they say, well, government is not worth it because they're corrupt. Well, then stop corrupting it.
Right.
Get money out of politics.
We're not going to run to you who bought the system.
I don't know why that feels so insightful.
No, really, it's rarely put so simply.
This is privatization. This is privatization. They are privatizing Social Security by saying it's going broke, by actively sabotaging it and defunding it, which doesn't even mean, which means changing the laws so that it has to give less money. They're privatizing the entire government by sabotaging and defunding the government, and then turning around saying, see, the government failed, so we must take over. But behind the scenes, they're the ones sabotaging.
Yes. And privatization can be worse than bureaucracy for sure. If you look at I was looking at some stuff from the strikes up in Boston. They had some union workers. I don't remember their trade. They were on strike, and sure enough, they brought in the scabs to break the strike, the temporary workers. And a friend of mine who's a union carpenter walked up to some of these scabs and was watching them work, and was heckling them because they were just completely ignoring regulations. They had no idea what they were doing, and he heckled them until they had to get somebody that was like a little more knowledgeable to straighten up the place, put a ladder where it needed to be, etc. And that's a consequence of stopping the government or unions, which are supported by the government and allowed by the government. And for some reason, people hate unions when they're pro free market. They don't like unions. But it's obvious that when you bring in privatized work, that it's not as efficient. And I think that job guarantee is good in that it will replace that contract work. If you don't have some contractor that doesn't give a crap, you have somebody that needed a job very badly, and also somebody that's building a resume off it, not somebody that's going to move to the next contract and forget it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Aaron says, Jeff, you might enjoy reading The Chicken Shit Club by Jesse Eisinger. It's about why the Justice Department fails to prosecute white-collar crimes. I had not heard of that before, but that actually reminds me of Bill Black. Bill Black was a regulator in the 1980s and was a big force of why the savings and loan crisis, whatever, which I'm not so aware of, but I think at the end of Clinton or the beginning of Reagan, that he was a big force of putting bankers to jail and stopping the savings and loan problem. And so he talks a lot about, there's videos of him talking about, I saw a TED talk where he talks about how our regulators have been completely captured and they don't do anything. They don't prosecute anything. The government doesn't take advantage of the power that they have to prosecute the bankers at all. So Bill Black, who's very active on neweconomicperspectives.com or .org, and also on Naked Capitalism. He talks a lot about that. He's a former regulator. Yep, Bill Black, who just wrote that, Susan Eldridge. The best way to rob a bank is to own one. That's his book. The best way to rob a bank is to own one. That's Bill Black. Yep, book. Aaron Taylor, how do we get rid of Citizens United? Well, there's a few options. Number one is Wolfpack.
Pitchfork. Oh. First is Wolfpack? I thought we were going for pitchforks.
That's another option.
Oh, okay, all right. Tell me Wolfpack then.
How do we get rid of Citizens United? Number one, Wolfpack. Pass it through the states. I think 6 states so far have.
It's at least 6.
Yeah, it's around 6 states so far, which is created by Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks to create a constitutional amendment to get rid of Citizens United, I think it is. And that needs to be done by, I believe, it's 36 states or something like that, and then it can become a constitutional amendment. We could also just pass a law, pass a new amendment in the Congress to just completely undo that Citizens United. We could also pull out the pitchforks.
In seriousness, we could spin corporate personhood against the corporations and say, okay, so you're people, therefore you have to follow all the laws people follow, and you're subject to the same punishments people are subject to. For example, being shut down completely. Like companies don't go to jail. There's no such thing as having your company locked and taken over by somebody else. Maybe there should be if you can't run it properly. And certainly Republicans aren't going to like that plan, and they might consider taking Citizens United away to prevent us from doing that, because that would be worse. I think that would be much worse for companies if we were to subject them to the actual criminal law.
There's an additional way, however, of getting rid of Citizens United, not actually, but effectively. And it's a real long shot, but it's happening right now, which is the Supreme Court case, Article the First. You know something about this, right?
Yeah.
So a former congressional candidate in the 3rd Congressional District of New Jersey, named Fred Laverne, who ran against MacArthur in 2016 and lost in the Democratic. No,
He won the primary.
he won the
lost in
primary.
general.
Won the Democratic primary, lost in the general when Trump won. And he and his brother have been doing insane research for years. And I have a 600-page book right there called When More Is Less. I don't know the exact title. It's right there, the big thick one on the shelf there. Whatever. It's about how there was before the First Amendment, there was actually that's actually the Second Amendment. So there was actually an article, the first, which is an amendment that I'm losing something, but it's basically that we're only allowed to have.
It was meant to clarify, wasn't it?
Clarify, but whatever it is, the effect of it is that we currently have one representative per around 720,000 people. And what this article, the first, actually says is that we're only supposed to have one representative for around 50,000 people. 50,000 people, which means that we actually don't have a quorum right now in Congress, and that we should have about 16 times more representatives than we do. We currently have 450 in House of Representatives. We currently have around 450, and we're supposed to have around, actually, according to this amendment, according to this article, the first, we're actually supposed to have around 6,000. So they are currently, I believe, in the Supreme Court. They had a hearing on November 5th, and they actually went to a 3-judge panel, federal panel. One of the judges on this panel, I think the head one being Merrick Garland.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were just heard, or it just began on November 5th, or was scheduled. I haven't heard anything what happened. So if Article the First passes, then what it will do, what this lawsuit demands as remedy, is to undo everything since this Congress began in January of 2017, because they don't have a quorum, because the quorum is whatever, around 3,000 something. So since they don't have a quorum, everything that they have done is therefore needs to be undone. So the tax cuts for millionaires, anything that Congress has done needs to be undone, because they did not have a quorum. So it was retroactive to January 2017.
It's important to note that there's no way that will happen.
It is
in the next 2 months. They are not going to hand this guy his case and undo everything that was done. It's not real. That's not going to happen. If it happens, it'll be during a Democratic congressional term. What do you call them? It'll be during the next Congress. You can't hear a whole case between now and January 15th or whatever.
Well, I regardless of the reality of what's actually going to happen, that is my understanding of what the remedy is supposed to be.
It's going to go back it's going to reset things to the beginning of the last Congress. It's a little disappointing that he really harped on, like, oh, we'd be able to undo the tax cuts, we'd be able to undo and we wouldn't. We'd be able to undo everything up until, January, unless it took a whole year after that or 2 years after that.
But regardless of what it actually undoes, regardless of what specific laws it actually undoes, what it means is that we can easily buy off 400. The super wealthy can easily buy off 450 representatives. At least in the short term, they cannot so easily buy off 6,000 representatives, and therefore, the chances of us getting in people that actually representatives that actually represent the people in this flood of new 6,000 representatives are much greater, and the chances of them passing a law to either simply undo Citizens United is much greater, or there was a reason that it's effectively that it doesn't even need to be repealed. There's a reason, I forget why. There's a reason that it doesn't even need to be repealed, because of all of these new representatives effectively renders it moot, because I believe it's because the rich can't really buy off 6,000 representatives, at least in the short term. So we have a very large window all of a sudden to do things for the people.
I think that's actually disturbingly shaky logic, because, like, let's take Jeff Bezos. Suppose we make it impossible for anybody with $100 million to buy a house rep. Even if you have $100 million, you can't afford a house rep. Jeff Bezos could still buy every single house rep if he wanted them. All you would do is get every other rich person not to compete with him for those reps. He'd be able to buy each one of them because they'd be free, no other donors. You would literally just be handing those reps to increasingly rich people who could afford them.
Okay. So, but there's something significant about it that I'm not recalling, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. But no way is right. I'm not sure, Aaron, what you're referring to. She says no way is right.
One of us must have said no way.
Oh, no way. Oh, yeah. Okay, I understand. Yeah.
We have no functioning democracy. Nah, I think that's a little dramatic, isn't it? I mean,
I think we're getting pretty close, but no, there's, I don't know. Yeah. So Article the First has, according to their research, which is pretty darn thorough, I have it in that book right there, has already been ratified and has been in effect for 200 years. It was ratified by 2/3 of the states at the time. Whatever, it was around 17 states at the time or something like that. And it was already ratified, except through an error of copying, meaning they didn't have copy machines back then. So they had people manually copying, and someone doing the manual copying changed the language such that they changed the word less than to more than or something like that, and therefore changed the fundamental concept of that article, not in actuality, but in the copy. And then that copy is what has been passed down through generations. And they had the evidence to show that it has already been passed long ago. And the fact of the Scrivener's error, this copying error, doesn't change the fact that it has been in effect for 200 years.
Indeed, the Constitution requires no, quote, no more than one representative for every 30,000 persons, which, if you think about, it makes no sense to word it that way. No more than one representative per 30,000? Why are you doing the representatives per people instead of people per representative?
I don't understand. So say, what
if I say there could be no less than one representative for every 30,000 people.
Wait. One representative. No, say
there could be no less than one representative for every 30,000 people. That means
there could be
least
12 representatives for 30,000 people.
Right. It means no more than 30,000 people per representative. But when you say the number of representatives per people, that's just very confusing.
I don't know what you're reading, though. Are you reading?
I'm reading this exact sentence.
But I don't know if you're reading the article that they say has been already ratified, or is this the incorrect one?
This appears in the Constitution, which Fred Laverne claims is incorrect.
Okay.
Which you had correctly said they changed less than to more than. Less than makes sense. You gotta have less than.
Okay, so the Constitution doesn't make sense because of the Scrivener's error.
Right. Well,
and they had the proof, and they had the. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to say that so we can have 100 representatives, whatever. So they had the evidence to show that it's actually makes sense in the original version.
Right. So yeah, as written, what it says is for every 30,000 people, make sure you don't have more than one representative, which is like, what? Versus if you change the wording the way Fred says, it actually says for every 30,000 people, you got to have more than one representative. That makes sense. That's okay. I understand that. But as worded, it's just so confusing that I really do see why this Scrivener's error makes sense. That it makes more sense if they had written this wrong.
I don't understand what you mean by makes more sense.
Sorry.
Why would the
It is
scrivener's
more, it
error
is more
make more sense?
believable. It is more believable that there was a scrivener's error because, as written, this is very
So it
confusing.
makes sense what Fred is saying, that this
Right.
scrivener's error messed things up.
Right.
Yeah. And according to this evidence, it's really interesting. The likeliness of it passing, the law says it should, but it would change the world against the powerful. So the fact,
I could see them saying, sorry, you had 2/3 of the states then, but you need 2/3 of the states now for it to apply to this Congress. And they might shoot it down.
well, whatever the
You
reason.
never know what kind of room they're going to give themselves.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, it is 5 o'clock. I can't believe we made it to 5 o'clock. Thank you, everybody. The first donation of $1 and the first donation of $5, the first donation of $10, the first donation of $20, you get a free T-shirt. No donation so far, unless I'm missing something I didn't check somewhere else in like mail or something. I don't know. But if you want to help support this, I'm definitely going to be putting quite a lot of research and putting presentations together and something and so on. And I have lots of T-shirts to give to you. I must admit that to make a tiny bit of money at this would be great. I need a lot more followers in order to even be able to do that in the official way. But there is a link in the description. Ben just put in a link. Of course, your comments and your questions would be highlighted and featured as well if you did that.
Thanks, Aaron, for the compliment, and it's nice to meet you too, Susan.
Yeah, Susan and I sat together at the conference, which was it was so interesting to meet all of these people that I've known online for a long time, and to suddenly meet all of these people in person and trying to process, oh, this is that person with this name and this little circle picture. This is that person with this name and this little circle picture. And I put these
sometimes I have dreams that I meet people that I know on social media. It's very disorienting.
But
I can imagine it as being like 20 of those dreams all at once.
No, but I'm good. I'm good when I'm in front of a camera. I'm good when I'm on stage. I'm good when I prepare. I'm really not good in a crowd of lots of new people. And I'm bombarded with all of these people that, yeah, I know in a way only through a name and a circle picture.
It's actually kind of
And then
worse.
all of a sudden I'm seeing all these people that, are new, but I know really well in a way.
You have to say hi.
And
to
they're
them
like,
'cause you
and they're
do
like,
know
oh,
them.
who are you? And say, oh, we're just like best friends online. I was like, oh, it's you. It's just like. But Susan and I sat together for quite a long time, which was great. And Erin, I only know online from her name and her picture, but we actually spoke on the phone once and talk a lot online. And there's a lot of people. So, all right, this was a good first shot. So next week we are going to watch my full lesson from the MMT conference. And if you want to see it, actually, if you wouldn't mind, put a link to the pinned tweet so people can watch. Actually, you know what? No, the pinned tweet. Scroll down the thread of the pinned tweet has the link to the thread of the. Actually, just go there and I'll show you what I'm talking about. There's a Naked Capitalism link, and that has everything, the slides and the chapters and everything. So go to the pinned tweet and then I'll show you. So I'm going to put a link to my lesson from the conference, and it has the slides, it has the chapters, it has a transcript, and that's what we're going to watch next week. We're going to watch one chapter at a time, and then after each chapter, we're going to talk about it and ask questions, talk about stuff. Ben actually brought up a really interesting point when he was watching it of the Pony for All Act, which is chapter 2, Pony for All Act of 2018. Where he said, so I say, so how long will it take to reproduce 500,000 ponies into 320 million? And so, well, you have to consider the gestation period. It's about 10 months. You have to consider how long afterwards a mommy can do her thing again. That's about 2 more months. So it's like a year cycle. And he said, well, wait a minute. What about ponies can't breed new ponies as soon as they're born? They have to age whatever, 5 years, 10 years or something before they can even breed again, before they can breed. So that definitely means we're talking at least 20 years.
Yeah.
So I wonder now, how old does a pony? Now the new question is how old does a pony have to
Right.
be before it can become a mommy or a daddy? So
I-
that's the new question.
The reason I thought of that is just I've done the calculation before with rabbits, because in Noah's Ark, the question is like, how many rabbits would we have if 2 rabbits just started reproducing? And obviously you have to factor in all those different variables. Same with the ponies. It probably wouldn't be too much more than 20 years. I'm sure it's.
I think my feeling says around 20 years is right.
And I would think that it's like a 4-year-old horse. You'd think a 4-year-old horse could reproduce, and all that means is you add per generation 4 years. So it would be a little longer, but not crazy, and not impossible. It would just be like a 40-year plan or something.
Right, but it is a definite thing that I missed.
This is becoming like a Maoist project, like a giant communist project for 40 years of breeding horses.
All right, so please, are you at the pin tweet?
Yeah.
Okay, so
here am I.
Yeah, click on this, please, and then like one of the bottom on the thread is the Naked Capitalism, and that Naked Capitalism link contains everything. So if you could put that into the chat.
Sure. And just the link to Naked Cap.
Yeah, and just this is Jeff Epstein. Just
Yeah.
So he's going to put a link into the chat for my full lesson, and that has the full lesson. It has the chapters, it has the slides, and it has the transcript. And next week, we're going to watch the full lesson in chapters, and after every chapter, we're going to talk and answer questions. So if you could help share this around and get people to start, subscribing to this YouTube channel, and start thinking about maybe giving donations to highlight comments and just to support, that would be great. But that's what's next week's going to be. And then after that, we're going to start to get into the book club and to lots of other things. So I look forward to doing this. Ben, you were much more interactive than I expected, but you actually sort of rescued me because I was running out of things to say, but it's great to bounce off of. So I will see you next week. Thank you very much for being here. Ben, thank you for doing this and all your help. And have a nice week. See you online. Bye.
I was trying to go out on that. Now